You have a report due Friday. You've known about it for 3 weeks. You haven't started, but it's now Thursday at 11 p.m. And suddenly, somehow, you are unstoppable. You're focused. You're sharp. You're in the zone. And part of you is wondering, why couldn't I do this on Monday? That's not laziness. That's not bad time management. That's your brain running on the only fuel it knows how to use, a deadline that finally feels real. Today, we're going to talk about why the ADHD brain is chemically dependent on urgency and what you can actually do about it. What dopamine actually does, it's not what you think. Most people think dopamine is the pleasure chemical. You do something fun, dopamine spikes. You feel good. Simple, right? Not quite. Dopamine is actually a motivation and anticipation chemical. It doesn't fire when you get the reward. It fires when your brain predicts a reward is coming. It's less about pleasure and more about the drive to pursue something. Neuroscientist Wolfram Schultz ran a landmark study in the 1990s where he measured dopamine in monkeys during reward tasks. What he found was striking. Dopamine neurons fired hardest not when the monkey got the juice, but in the moment before it expected the juice. The anticipation, not the reward. Now here's where ADHD enters the picture. The ADHD dopamine deficit. Multiple studies, including research published in the Journal of Attention Disorders and work by Dr. Nora Volkov at the NIH, have found that people with ADHD have significantly fewer dopamine receptors in key areas of the brain, particularly the striatum and prefrontal cortex. Fewer receptors means weaker dopamine signaling. The brain's anticipation system is running at maybe 60% of the volume it should be. So what happens? Low-stakes tasks, things that should feel rewarding, generate almost no dopamine signal. Your brain can't get excited about them, can't sustain focus on them, can't really even begin them. Not because you don't care, because your brain genuinely cannot manufacture the chemical motivation to start. But a deadline, a crisis, something genuinely urgent, that generates enough dopamine to finally break through the noise. The ADHD brain doesn't respond to importance. It responds to immediacy. Dr. William Dodson's framework, psychiatrist Dr. William Dodson, introduced a concept that changed how a lot of people understand ADHD, the interest-based nervous system. His argument is this: neurotypical brains are driven by importance and priority. They can sit down, look at a task list, decide what matters most, and do it. The ADHD brain doesn't work that way. The ADHD nervous system is primarily driven by 4 things: interest, challenge, novelty, and urgency. If a task doesn't hit at least one of those 4, the brain simply will not engage, regardless of how important that task actually is. And of those 4, urgency is the most reliable trigger, because urgency is the one your nervous system can't ignore. A deadline that's tomorrow isn't just a calendar entry. It's an alarm going off in your amygdala. Why this creates a dependency cycle? Here's where it becomes a trap. Because urgency works so reliably, the ADHD brain starts to need urgency to function. You unconsciously procrastinate until the deadline manufactures the neurological conditions your brain requires. This isn't a character flaw. This is conditioning. Your brain learned that waiting until the last minute is the only strategy that's ever worked, so it keeps doing it. The cost, of course, is chronic stress, missed opportunities, and the exhausting shame spiral that tends to follow. You're not broken, but you are running a very inefficient operating system. Why stress becomes the workaround? Here's something most ADHD content skips over. Urgency doesn't just trigger dopamine, it also triggers adrenaline. or technically, norepinephrine. Norepinephrine is the brain's alertness chemical. It's released during stress, threat, and high-stakes situations. And it happens to be one of the primary neurotransmitters that's dysregulated in ADHD. It's literally what stimulant medications like Adderall and Ritalin target. They increase norepinephrine and dopamine availability. So when you're in crisis mode, your own body is essentially self-medicating. You're generating a chemical cocktail that temporarily corrects the exact deficits causing your ADHD symptoms. That's why the last-minute version of you feels like a different person. You're not faking competence. You're chemically assisted. The problem is that adrenaline is a stress hormone. Running on it chronically elevates cortisol, disrupts sleep, and over time can genuinely damage the cardiovascular and immune systems. The workaround works, until it doesn't. A strange but evidence-backed hack. Before we get to solutions, there's one phenomenon worth understanding because it tells us something important about how the ADHD brain works. Body doubling. Body doubling is the experience of being dramatically more productive when another person is physically present, even if they're not helping, not watching, and not even paying attention to you. Someone sitting across from you reading a book can completely change your ability to focus. Why? The leading theory involves social priming and accountability circuits in the prefrontal cortex. The presence of another person activates the brain's social monitoring systems, which incidentally increases arousal and attention. It creates a low-level urgency. Someone is here, so I should be doing something. A 2021 study published in Body Image and a growing body of ADHD coaching research has documented body doubling as a legitimately effective productivity strategy, not just anecdotal folklore. Virtual body doubling, working on video call with someone you don't even talk to, shows similar effects. The brain doesn't fully distinguish between physical and virtual social presence. The hacks. So here's the question. If your brain needs urgency to function, how do you create it without torturing yourself with real deadlines and actual crises? This is where it gets interesting. Hack 1. 1. Manufactured urgency. The most direct approach is to manufacture urgency that your brain treats as real. The key word is treats as real, because your brain is surprisingly easy to fool. Time boxing with a visible countdown timer is one of the most evidence-backed strategies for ADHD. A 25-minute Pomodoro isn't just a productivity technique. For an ADHD brain, the ticking clock creates genuine urgency signaling. Research from Dr. Ari Tuckman, a psychologist specializing in ADHD, supports time-limited work chunks as significantly more effective than open-ended work sessions. Make the timer visible and external. An hourglass on your desk works better than a phone timer you can't see. Your brain needs a visual cue that time is genuinely running out. Heck, raise the stakes artificially. Your brain responds to consequences, so give it some. Tell someone what you're going to do and by when. Commit to something public. Bet a friend $5 you'll finish by 3 p.m. This sounds trivial, but the neuroscience backs it up. External accountability activates the brain's social threat detection system, the same circuit that makes deadlines scary. A social commitment creates a small but real emotional stake, which generates a small but real dopamine norepinephrine response. Apps like BeMinder and FocusMate are built entirely on this mechanism. They use financial stakes and social accountability to manufacture the neurological urgency that ADHD brains require. Hack 3. Interest injection. Remember Dodson's 4 drivers? Interest, challenge, novelty, urgency. You can sometimes substitute interest for urgency, and it's healthier. This means finding the most interesting angle into a task. Not asking, how do I get this done? But what part of this is actually curious, or weird, or hard? Gamify it. Race against yourself. Add a completely arbitrary constraint, like you have to finish the first draft in 18 minutes. The novelty and challenge can sometimes generate enough dopamine to get the engine running. Hack Chapter 4. Body doubling. Deliberately. We already talked about how it works. Now use it intentionally. Find a virtual co-working session. Use FocusMate to get matched with a stranger for a 50-minute session, or just call a friend and work on video with your cameras on. The goal isn't conversation, it's presence. Let your brain think someone is watching. It doesn't need to be true. It just needs to feel plausible. Chapter 5. Environment as a trigger. Your brain associates environments with states. If you always try to work from your bed, your brain associates that space with rest. If you always scroll your phone at your desk isn't a focus trigger. Designate a specific physical space, even a single chair, that is only for focused work. Over time, arriving in that space starts to prime your brain for focus before you even begin. This is classical conditioning applied to your own nervous system. Here's what I want you to take away from all of this, because this part matters. The urgency addiction isn't a moral failure. It's not laziness encoded into your personality. It's a neurological adaptation that developed because your brain was trying to solve a real problem. How do I generate enough signal to act when my dopamine system is running quiet? The problem isn't that the solution was wrong. The problem is that the solution has costs, stress, chaos, missed deadlines, when even urgency isn't enough, and the chronic shame of believing you should be able to do what everyone else seems to do effortlessly. You don't need to fix yourself. You need a better fuel source. And now you know enough about the engine to start experimenting with one. The hacks we talked about aren't workarounds, they're translations. Taking what your brain actually needs and finding ways to give it that without the crisis. If any part of this felt like someone finally explaining something you've always kind of known but couldn't name, that's the point. Neuroscience isn't just interesting, it's useful. When you understand the mechanism, you stop blaming yourself for the symptom. If you want to go deeper on the dopamine side of ADHD, particularly how stimulant medications interact with this system and why they work for some people and not others, that's coming up in a future video. Drop it in the comments if that's something you want sooner. If any of this resonated with you, share it with someone who could benefit. Understanding your brain is essential. It's not just interesting, it's empowering. Want to explore dopamine in ADHD deeper? Let us know in the comments.